Okay, God bless you all. What we're going to do, we just had Divine Liturgy and then Senior Moment Lunch. So we're going to double the reading today. As soon as Barbara comes on, then she can take over reading. But I'm going to start on page 50, and then we'll do a little bit of reading, and then we'll talk, and then we'll do another set of readings as well. Through the prayers of our Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. This is page 50, Healthy and Unhealthy Submission. Barbara's here. Barbara, I'll read the first one and then the first section. And then if you can read the second section, that'd be great.
Sure.
Another characteristic of these people is submission. Certainly, submission or obedience is a virtue in the church. And as you know, monastics have an obligation to carry out obedience. When they're tonsured, along with two other vows, they also make the vow that they'll be obedient, that they'll be submissive to the abbot, to the elder, to the spiritual father. With obedience, they'll cut off their will. With this submission, they'll be able to be redeemed with God's grace and assistance from the old man, from their passions and their desires, and they'll move forward to their rebirth. But you see, there's also unhealthy submission, which doesn't liberate a person. Submission which doesn't help a person to become free from passions, selfishness, from his own will, from the old man, and to arrive at true and real rebirth. This submission is an illness which renders people who are attacked by it unable to see clearly what they themselves are and what others are. That is, it causes them to overestimate others and see false virtues and false talents in them. We must certainly say once again that there's no harm in seeing others as higher and oneself as lower. On the contrary, it's a good thing when it's healthy. When it's an unhealthy thing, however, it does a great deal of harm. The reason one arrives at such an unhealthy submission is that he doesn't dare to see with his eyes open very clearly what that human being is to whom he's submitting himself, what that human being is to whom he has attached himself, and to whom he has bound himself. He doesn't dare because if he allows himself to see with his eyes wide open, and consequently lowers the level of his submission somewhat, this attachment of his, afterwards, he can't bear it. He can't stand on his own 2 feet. He can't cope with life. And this happens because he's someone who only if he grabs hold somewhere, only if he leans on something, only if he sees even some false virtue somewhere, false gifts, can he stand on his own feet. Only then can he live, can he feel somewhat calm, somewhat comfortable, and not be overwhelmed by an inner chaos, by an inner turmoil and uneasiness which leads him to destruction. The bad thing is that he himself sees it as a virtue, but also that person or those persons to whom he is attached, to whom he submits himself slavishly, on whom he depends in a servile way, they consider it, as we were saying last time, as a virtue. As you can see, if this is true, and for me it's completely true, then we have an utter falsification of Christian life, an utter falsification, an adulteration of Christian life-altering experiences. And there comes about a humiliation to this person who nourishes a hope that something is happening with him. That is, that in the end he will benefit. But instead of seeing benefit, instead of being helped, he is destroyed. But the other person, too, who accepts this unhealthy submission and cultivates it, harms both himself and the one who subordinates himself to him. Barbara, if you don't mind to keep reading, that'd be great.
Slavish dependence on others. Another characteristic of these sick people is dependence. People who have this illness can't live without dependence on others. Their self-esteem depends on the approval or disapproval others show them, on the opinion others have about them. How many people, good Christians in other respects, are burdened in the literal sense of the term? They can't sleep at night or they can't calm down the following day. They can't do their chores and say their prayers. That is, they literally lose themselves and are dominated by an inner chaos because this, that, or the other person on whom they are dependent, perhaps in an unconscious manner, perhaps without realizing it, didn't speak nicely to them, didn't show them the approval they were anticipating, didn't say well done to them or good job as they were expecting. If you wish, let's speak more specifically. If, for example, we're waiting for someone to visit us and we desire this visit a great deal, and in the end he doesn't do it, we may not say anything to anyone. We may hide what we felt when he didn't come. But basically, the whole good idea we've had about ourselves will drop to the lowest point. It will be reduced to nothing. While this person was smiling at us, while he was saying the sort of words that allowed us to understand that we were in his favor, while he was conducting himself toward us in such a way that it appeared he was our friend, that he esteemed us, that he took account of us, we felt good, at ease. We felt that we ourselves were something in society. But as soon as he turned his back, as soon as with a certain word of his, with his whole position, for example, with his refusal or his failure to visit us, who knows what his reasons were for not doing it? He showed that he didn't esteem us anymore. Everything inside us was destroyed. These people, that is, the sick types who are suffering from something of the sort, they can't calm down afterwards. They can't find peace. They can't find rest. And they're ready, eager to do whatever happens to be necessary, whatever they think will appease the other, will cause him to esteem them, to approve of them again, what they think will help them to secure his love again. They're ready to conduct themselves slavishly and to lose their dignity and become ridiculous. From what I understand, I may be wrong, there are Christians today, faithful, more than we think exist, who live with such an inner disorder, with such an inner chaos. And it's absolutely impossible, let me put it this way, for such a Christian to progress in the spiritual life. Is such a soul, which, whether it understands it or not, whether it wants it or not, is attached to others and depends on others in such a manner that one would say it awaits the love of others as if God himself. It's impossible for God's grace to come and take up residence, for God's blessing to come, for Christ to come. It isn't possible for Christ to live in such a soul. According to the verse, it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. Because this soul has lost itself, it has slipped away from itself and relies on something else. A certain person has captured the soul. The soul has been possessed by all these things, which are idols.
Okay, let's stop there for now. Let's just discuss it and then we'll do the second reading. Any thoughts or comments on what we have read so far?
May I just really
Yeah,
quick,
please.
really quick, really quick. I just want to say that um, I see, I have seen, and I'm particularly seeing now, of course, unhealthy aspects of my relationships.
Hmm.
And it said earlier that we do what is necessary. And I
Hmm.
keep coming up against, well, what do I do? Do I, when I recognize it, just say, Lord, please show me how to love this person in a healthy way?
Hmm.
Is that my next step? What's my next step? If I
Hmm.
I recognize it, and boy,
Hmm.
it's easy to recognize for me
Hmm.
anyway, forgive me, but it is
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
that
No, it's
it's
true.
everywhere. And I want to be aware, of course. I think I hope we all want to be
Hmm.
aware. What
Hmm.
what do we do?
Hmm.
The next step necessary. Do what is necessary, it says. Okay.
Right. Yeah, no, it's the how to. So we realize
Excellent.
it within us. First, it's unconscious, right? Now we're reading this so that we can realize it within us next time, so it becomes conscious. So therefore, it's a lot easier once we know about the passion than when we didn't know about it. I mean, when you go to the doctors and they say, you've been struggling for all these years, and they say, oh, you have such and such a disorder. We could say, oh, wow, that's why I've been suffering, right? So in this case, it's the same kind of thing. Oh, maybe I have some unhealthy attachments. Oh, that's why I'm in inner chaos sometimes. Oh, that's why I have an inner disorder. I didn't know this. So now I can be more conscious of this. So then we realize, okay, I'm too dependent on, let's just give an example, my mom or my dad's opinion of me. Okay, whatever it may be, you fill in the blank. Okay, now I understand that this is the case. So now I have to figure out a way to love them without them having rule over me in an unhealthy way. So we don't want to rebel against them, right? That's the unhealthy way. It's like now we're moving away from them. So whatever you say, I'm going to do the opposite. But we want to still have a healthy love for them in our hearts, but then not feel obligated that we have to do everything that they say, for example. So that's tricky. Now it's going to be painful at first. Oh, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do that, and you should do this. And why don't you do this, and why don't you do that? You know, your brother does this, and your sister does that. I'm just making things up. So that's going to be painful to be able to not want to like go for the attaboys and the, but daddy, you look at like someone like Michael Jordan, and he even confessed this, that part of his motivation for his whole success was to try to get his dad's attention, right? So we could be doing things that we don't even know that's motivating our entire life because we're trying to get someone's attention. So then, therefore, it's like, all right, I'm no longer gonna try to get that person's, I'm not gonna try to get my esteem off of that person's attention. And that's gonna be painful. So there's kind of that severing, you know? So then we put that on. Where do we direct that desire? We direct that desire to God. But then he'll later say we can even have an unhealthy attachment to God. All this is very subtle. So yeah, I mean, this is going to unfold as we go, but I would say superficially, first go through the pain of the separation. Don't sever them in your love, in your heart. Like, don't rebel against them, but also be more free that you don't have to do everything that they say. Let's keep reading and then we'll see what else comes. And your question is a very good one, and I think it's going to be answered as we keep going little by little. So if you don't mind to keep reading, repressed hostility.
Sure. Repressed hostility and strange outbursts. But the harm goes further. A human being is moved in such a way toward others, who is attached to others and bound with them, and depends on them in such a manner that in some way he looks them in the eyes to see whether they'll laugh or not, whether they'll approve of him or not, whether they'll esteem him or not. Such a human being doesn't suffer from that alone. He also suffers from the other things we have mentioned. That is, he may also have within him tendencies of hostility toward others. Certainly, the more he senses that he is a slave of others and that others are exploiting him in some way, the more the tendency of hostility towards them flares up. But if he manifests his hostility, if he manifests his aggressive dispositions toward others, he immediately loses their love, their approval, precisely what he's waiting for from them in order to support himself and ensure in this way his peace and tranquility. So because he fears losing this love, this favor of others, that's why he sometimes suppresses this protest that comes from within him, about which one should say, let it be expressed once and for all. He suppresses this protest, which begins from within, He suppresses the impulse he feels to protest, to react, or to attack. Not that these are good things, but we're talking now about what's happening inside this person's soul. So he suppresses these things, as psychology would say, he represses them. And even he himself doesn't want to know that he has them, let alone for others to know. These things, however, do exist within these people. As they are repressed, they exist in the soul, and somehow or other, at one time or another, they'll burst forth from inside to bite whoever they can. That's why we see in such people who attach themselves, who are extremely disciplined, who are extremely obedient, extremely good, and one can ask them to do something and they do it easily, or one can send them here and there and they go, or set them to sweating and straining all day long, doing this and that, and they do it. Well, we see in these people that there comes a moment when this repressed reality of reaction, of protest, of disposition toward aggression can no longer remain hidden, and these people explode. And that's why it's not rare to see these people, who appear on the one hand so good, react in such a way that makes other people wonder, others wonder. This also sometimes happens with children. Many children are slavishly attached to their parents. And this happens because their personality is very defective and they can't bear to cope by themselves. And so they grab on, they hang on to their mother, their father. They appear to be very sensible and very obedient children. They appear to be the best children, so we think, while deep down they're sick. And that's why sometimes a child becomes unrecognizable. And one says, "This child was so good. How did he turn out like this? How is it that he expresses himself in this way?" Adults can also manifest the same thing. A moment can come that they'll manifest themselves and react in such a way, they'll protest and attack in such a way that one would wonder. And sometimes this attack, this protest, this whole reaction is expressed, I would say, passively. It's that grievance, that bitterness, that disappointment, that hopelessness that is observed in these human beings.
Okay, let's talk about that for a couple minutes. Anything that stands out here, don't be shy. Very interesting observation. Repressed hostility because of the unhealthy attachment towards others. We just do what we said. We appear to be good. And then all of a sudden, what does he say? We explode. We appear to be good on the outside, but because for whatever reason we don't have a healthy disposition for what we do, then we explode.
Now, I just have one point of clarification here.
Mm,
It says up on the top of 54. So
mhm.
because he fears losing this love, this favor of others, that's why he sometimes suppresses this protest that comes from within him, about which one should say, let it be expressed
Mhm.
once and for all.
I had a feeling you were going to ask that, and at first I was like, I bet she's going to ask about that, but I don't really know. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's go back. But if he manifests his hostility, if he manifests his aggressive dispositions toward others, he immediately loses their love, their approval. Right? So there's something that's happening. Let's use me, for example. There's something that's happening within me. I want to get approval by someone, uh, and they're not showing me the approval that I'm expecting. So I have an aggressive disposition. Now, I want to hold it back because then I'm afraid of them losing their love. I'm afraid that I will lose their love, right? Which is the very thing that I want from them. Precisely what I'm waiting for from them in order to support myself and ensure in this way my peace and tranquility. See, my peace and my tranquility is based upon someone else's approval, right? As long as someone else approves of me, As long as someone else smiles at me, as long as someone else laughs at my jokes or whatever, I have peace and tranquility. But the moment that they don't laugh or don't approve, then I lose my peace and my tranquility. That's the context. So because I fear losing this love, this favor of others, that's why I sometimes suppress this protest that comes from within me, about which one should say, let it be expressed once and for all. Oh, beautiful. All right. So St. Paisios, we're just going to unpack this a little bit. St. Paisios talks about this because, and I remember this because I'll give you some context because Matushka's not here. Saint, okay, let's start this. When Matushka and I were on our first date, right? I had the window down. I was driving her home from the beach in Northern California, and I had the window down, and she had a blanket on. And I was like, "Do you want me to roll the window up?" And she goes, "No, that's okay. I'll just wear a blanket." You know, it's something that you do on like your first date sort of thing. Now that we're married all these years, she's like, "Can you please roll up that window? I'm cold." Okay. So St. Paisios says that like he used the same example. This is why I remember it. And he said, if you're cold and the window's down, like you should ask. It's better to ask that person to roll up the window. It's better to say, like, you're cold. Would you mind to please roll up the window? There's something kind of not aggressively, not like in a mean way. It's just you're able freely to communicate your needs, right? Because if I'm afraid to communicate my needs because I'm going to lose the love of someone, then I'm not free. Oh, I can't say that I need the window rolled up because then she won't like me and I'll lose the love that I so yearn for from her. Right? So we should be able to express ourselves without hostility, but genuinely. It'd be nice if we could roll up the window. I'm kind of cold. But we don't act in that genuine way. You see what I'm saying? Because we're attached to what other people think of us. I think that's what he's referring to. Because if I have a little bit of hostility or whatever, obviously I don't want to be aggressive towards the person, but at least I can express myself, right? In a spirit of love. You see, it's so subtle, so subtle. You know what I'm saying? But there's a freedom here. Any reaction to that, Barbara,
Hey, Father.
or anyone else? Yeah,
Um, Reading all of this is like looking in a mirror. It's very, very revealing. Um,
definitely.
and I know just for a little bit of nuance in my own case, I know a lot of the time that that reaction to other people or that desire to have other people think a certain way of me,
Right.
um, or the reaction that I have when they don't. In my mind, I think that it's probably not like coincidental that those instances where that really strikes me
Mm-hmm.
are always instances where like maybe I've been a little bit vulnerable or I've opened myself up a little bit or I've been a little bit genuine for a
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the reaction that I get isn't exactly the one, or it's just
Mm-hmm.
been I've had a relationship with this person for a while, and so they know me better.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't get the reaction that I'm hoping for from that person, or
Right.
I think they might think that I'm something that I don't want them to think that I am, or whatever,
Right.
it feels to me like in my mind, it feels like a rejection. Like oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what I predicted was going to happen. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get rejected
Mm-hmm.
for whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that like that contributes to that reaction being even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrible at this.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a daily struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you said to me not too long ago about something specific was make sure that you're doing this for God.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I don't know if that fits here or not, Father, but no, I
Mm-hmm.
know that's something that I ask myself all the time, and this goes into what you were talking about at Vespers
Mm-hmm.
last night too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever really, I don't even know how to get to the point where I trust myself with my own motivations, if that makes any sense, because I think so often, for all of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons that we're describing and what we're reading right now, like, I look
Mm-hmm.
at things and I don't know, why I'm doing something. Am I doing
Mm-hmm.
this because I've conflated my desire to do it with my desire to have someone else want me to do it or think that I should do it?
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Mm-hmm.
um, I, so
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very difficult for me to
Mm-hmm.
see my way through those things.
Exactly. This is why, I can't remember who said it, maybe it was St. John Chrysostom, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. Doesn't matter, if we feel like we're doing it in good intentions, that could end in hell. So we do have to be wary of this stuff, right? So here's hell. Let me tell you what hell is, because I've experienced it. We've all have tasted this. Hell is when we are reliant on other people's opinions of us. That's awful. Meaning, like, I need to, have someone think of me in a certain way. And then when they don't, then I need to defend myself and justify myself. This is a very difficult way to live. We all know this, right? Uh, and what he will say later on in the book, when it comes to idealized images, is that this can be an idealized image, and that we want others to approve of that idealized image. Uh, and so the hard thing to do is to let the idealized image die. But that's what needs to happen. And that's very difficult. That's very difficult because that means that people are not going to understand you. People are not going to get you, in your mind, and I say you, I say all of us. People are going to misjudge you, and that's okay because people misjudged Christ. People misjudged the saints, and that's all part of it. That's all part of it. So it's like, would it be, I mean, when Christ was crucified, like they wagged their heads, and he didn't say, oh, wait, but you don't understand. Like, I'm supposed to do this and then I'm going to be resurrected. And you see how it's all going to work out. So I want you to think well of me. He just let them wag their heads at them. Look at the holy fools for Christ, right? They let people kind of see them in a lower light. I remember I think it was Saint Porphyrios. He was walking along the road and people started making fun of him. Say, boy, look at that monk. I feel so bad for him, this, that, and the other. And he rejoiced because he knew that when people would belittle him, then he would get more rewards. So there's a way to kind of like see it the opposite, where it's like, all right, people aren't smiling at me. People aren't approving me. Thank God. This is great because I'm going to get more rewards in heaven. So that tension is supposed to be there, it's supposed to be there. And that kind of, boy, is my intention real or not? I mean, that's a good like place to kind of wrestle with in this unhealthy attachment and trying to sever this and all this struggle. I'm telling you, it's so great. We see this in parents because I've experienced it myself, and we'll end here. It's like, you want your children to act a certain way. You want them to be good so that people will think of you as a good parent. So when kids scream in church, they immediately, the projection can be, oh, people will think that I'm not a very good parent. But then it's like, if they scream, just you just gotta kind of sit in that. It's like, well, what can you do? What can you do? Yes, there was something I wanted to say something, and then we'll end.
You're probably hearing me, Father. I'm sorry, it's
No,
Yvonne.
that's okay, Ivan.
I'm probably too eager to say what I need to say. Maybe I shouldn't. But the sentence that Barbara read, that one little ending paragraph, after I read that, I had written next to that the label "sweet hostility." 100 years ago, when I was in LPN nursing practice school,
Hmm.
in psychology, we learned about this our instructor's term, sweet hostility. And it was typically when someone, and this is a parental thing, because you're just talking about parentals, when a child doesn't feel like it's meeting its parents' expectation.
Right.
And it so damages him that in its relationships with other people, it doesn't know how to actually give of itself in a way that's actually giving.
Hmm.
And I'm sure we've all
Hmm.
experienced having someone say something to us that's nice, a
Hmm.
thank you even,
Hmm.
that behind it you feel like that's not what they really meant.
Mm.
And it's being stuck and locked into that place where you want the approval of the mother that you're
Mhm.
not going to get.
Mm.
So it's hard to express anything positive to people outside that relationship.
Mm.
Um, and people
Mhm.
sense it. You can feel it.
Mhm.
When someone says something and you feel like, gee, that sounded good, but I have a feeling she really mean that.
Mm. Yeah, I remember when we would get, there's someone say, like, when you give alms, it's actually better that they don't say thank you, right?
Yeah.
That way you can just do it just for Christ, keep it hidden,
Mm,
and then you're not expecting any kind of reward at all, not even a thank you. You have no expectations for that thing that you're giving. And to go back to Herman's question, it's almost like these things, with Yvonne's, what you're saying, these things, the it's like a spider's web, the detachment of the spider's web is like one thread at a time, one encounter at a time, where you're not doing things for a certain reaction. You're not doing things for a smile, for a thank you, for a whatever, meeting some expectation. There's no hidden motive. It's not like, oh, I want to do this good deed so that I can get promoted or so that I can be seen or so that I can have a dinner or a statue made after. Like, there's no hidden motive. And Herman said, okay, how do you discern that? Which is a good question. Is if we can do it in secret and not expect any reward, and in fact, not want a reward, right? Because Christ said, you had your reward. You've experienced the good things in this life. So it's almost like, well, do we want the reward on earth or do we want the reward in heaven? This is where the rubber really meets the road. So if we really want the reward in heaven, then we can do it secretly. No one knows about it. We don't even know about it. The person who gave it doesn't even know about it. You know, that's where there's no like gain that you're trying to get. You just want to love them and love Christ. This is why in Matthew 25, we'll end here and then we'll pick it up tomorrow. This is exactly why when Christ says, when you fed the poor, you fed me. And what did they respond? When did we feed you? They didn't even realize
mm,
they did good works. They didn't even realize
mm.
this. They're like, we didn't do anything good. Like we're just trying to like feed people. So we can really fall into this trap. Uh, especially as we grow the ministry and stuff, we can fall into this like, wow, we got something really good going on here. But we got to stay humble because we got to do this for Christ's sake. We can't do it for anyone else's sake, not for our own sake, not for our own benefit, not for Whew, this is difficult, but at least we know the road. At least we know the road. And let's just keep struggling for more authenticity little by little. It's not going to be easy, but at least we can struggle for it. God bless you all. Let's stop and then we'll talk about this tomorrow. Really wonderful material here. Something that can't be concluded, this is a lifelong process, but at least we know where the struggle lies, which is very, very healing. Let's pray. It is truly me to bless you, O Theotokos, ever blessed and most pure, and the Mother of our God, more honorable than the cherubim, and more glorious beyond compare than the seraphim. Without defilement you gave birth to God the Word. True Theotokos, we magnify you. God bless you all. Last one.